The gilded doorway of Prestige and Company welcomed wealth, but apparently not Alicia Monroe, at least not in her current attire. Dressed down in jeans, she watched as manager Vanessa Whitfield's smile dissolved upon seeing her, only to reappear seconds later for a white couple in designer clothes. When Alicia asked to view a diamond bracelet, Vanessa's reply was silk-wrapped condescension. Those pieces require a serious commitment. Meanwhile, staff whispered and snickered, unaware that this window shopper had signed the final acquisition papers for their entire company that morning. Only Maya, a young intern, offered water and respect amid the silent hostility. As Alicia departed, she pulled out her phone and spoke 6 calm words that would reshape everyone's tomorrow. Prepare. The terminations. We start fresh. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The morning sun gleamed off the glass and steel Monroe Luxe headquarters as Alicia Monroe made her way through the bustling main floor. At 38, she carried herself with the poised confidence that came from building a billion-dollar empire from nothing. Her tailored pantsuit and minimal jewelry spoke of understated wealth, but her eyes, sharp and observant, revealed something deeper, a woman who had learned to guard herself against the world. "Good morning, Ms. Monroe," called various employees as she passed. Alicia nodded acknowledgement, her smile polite but measured. She'd mastered the art of being present while keeping emotional distance. Years of climbing to the top had taught her that vulnerability was a luxury she couldn't afford, especially not after the string of betrayals that had shaped her journey. As she stepped into her corner office, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city she'd conquered. Camille Parker, her chief of staff and closest confidant, was already waiting with a steaming cup of coffee and a tablet filled with the day's agenda. "The paperwork came through this morning," Camille said, sliding a leather portfolio across the desk. "Prestige and Company is officially yours." Alicia ran her fingers across the embossed logo on the folder. Prestige & Co. was an old-money jewelry chain with stores across the country, a brand synonymous with luxury, but also notorious for its elitism. The company had been hemorrhaging money for years, unable to adapt to changing markets. Now it belonged to her. "Thank you," Alicia said, opening the folder to review the final acquisition documents. "Has the announcement been scheduled?" "Press release is drafted for tomorrow morning," Camille replied. "The PR team wants to know if you'd like to make a statement about your plans for the brand." Alicia closed the folder, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Hold the announcement." Camille looked up from her tablet. "Hold it? For how long?" "Indefinitely," Alicia said, standing up and walking to the window. "I want to see what we've really purchased before we announce it to the world." "I don't understand." Alicia turned, her expression resolute. "Prestige has a reputation, Camille. Old money, old attitudes. Stories about how they treat certain customers have circulated for years." "The discrimination lawsuits," Camille nodded, understanding dawning. "They settled out of court." "Exactly. I want to observe their culture from the ground level before we rebrand. No announcements, no press releases. As far as their staff is concerned, it's business as usual." Camille watched her boss carefully. "You're going in undercover." A small smile played at the corner of Alicia's mouth. "Let's call it a cultural assessment." Later that afternoon, Alicia stepped out of her car 3 blocks from Prestige's flagship, Boutique. She'd traded her designer suit for dark jeans, a simple blouse, and minimal makeup. Her hair, usually styled in a sleek updo, now fell in natural curls around her shoulders. The transformation was remarkable, from CEO to everyday shopper in under an hour. The flagship store occupied prime real estate in the heart of downtown. Its limestone facade and brass fixtures exuded old-world opulence, a stark contrast to the sleek modernism of surrounding shops. As Alicia approached, she noticed a young white couple being greeted enthusiastically at the door by a staff member. Taking a deep breath, she pulled open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The interior was exactly as she remembered from the acquisition photos. Plush carpeting, crystal chandeliers, and glass cases filled with glittering jewelry. The air smelled faintly of expensive perfume and polished metal. Almost immediately, Alicia felt several pairs of eyes turn toward her. A security guard near the entrance straightened slightly, his gaze lingering a beat too long. Two sales associates behind the counter exchanged quick glances before returning to their tasks with sudden, exaggerated focus. Vanessa Whitfield, the store manager, stood near the center of the showroom assisting an older white couple. Tall and meticulously groomed, with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun, she embodied the prestige aesthetic, polished, exclusive, and cold. She glanced up as Alicia entered, her eyes making a swift assessment before deliberately turning back to her customers. Alicia moved toward a display of bracelets, aware of the subtle shift in energy her presence had created. No one approached to assist her. No one offered the standard welcome to Prestige greeting she'd heard given to the couple outside. After several minutes of browsing, Alicia's attention was caught by an elegant diamond bracelet with sapphire accents. She waited, hoping someone would notice her interest, but the staff remained conspicuously occupied elsewhere. Finally, she approached the counter where Vanessa was now arranging a display. "Excuse me," Alicia said politely. "I'd like to see that bracelet, please." Vanessa looked up, her expression professionally blank. "Which one?" "The diamond and sapphire piece in the third case." Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's from our Celestial collection. The starting price for pieces in that line is $15,000. The statement hung in the air, not a question but a barrier. "I understand," Alicia replied evenly. "I'd still like to see it." Vanessa's smile tightened. "We don't usually open high-value items for casual browsers. Perhaps there's something in our sterling silver collection that would be more suitable." The implication was clear. Alicia felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the same feeling she'd experienced countless times throughout her life when someone decided her worth based on her appearance. "I'm interested in the bracelet I pointed out," she repeated, her voice calm but firm. Vanessa's smile never wavered. "I'm currently assisting other clients with appointments. If you'd like to schedule a consultation for a more appropriate time, Thomas at the front desk can help you." With that, she turned and walked away toward the back office, leaving Alicia standing alone at the counter. A few moments later, a young woman approached hesitantly, carrying a bottle of water on a small silver tray. She was younger than the other staff, probably an intern or new hire, with kind eyes that held a touch of embarrassment. "Would you like some water while you wait?" she offered quietly. "Thank you." Alicia accepted the bottle, reading the name tag on the young woman's blazer. "Maya, is it?" "Yes, ma'am." Maya shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward the office where Vanessa had disappeared. "I'm sorry about the wait. We're a bit short-staffed today." It was a poor excuse, and they both knew it. 3 other associates stood idle, pretending to be busy with inventory or displays. "No problem," Alicia said. "While I wait, could you tell me about some of these pieces?" Maya brightened slightly. "Of course. What would you like to know?" For the next few minutes, Maya walked Alicia through some of the collections, her knowledge impressive despite her junior position. However, their conversation was soon interrupted by Vanessa's return. "Maya, I need you to reorganize the inventory sheets," Vanessa said sharply. "I'll take over here." Maya nodded apologetically to Alicia before hurrying away. Vanessa turned to Alicia with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Have you found something that interests you?" she asked, her tone suggesting she already knew the answer. "I'm still interested in seeing the sapphire and diamond bracelet," Alicia replied. Vanessa sighed. "As I mentioned, those pieces require a serious commitment. Our clientele typically knows exactly what they're looking for when they come in." "I understand quality," Alicia said. "I'd just like to see the craftsmanship up close." "Perhaps another time," Vanessa said dismissively. "We're preparing for a private showing this evening." As Alicia moved toward another display, she heard a male voice nearby. Chad Thompson, a young sales associate with slicked back hair and an expensive watch, was whispering to another staff member while glancing in her direction. "Window shoppers shouldn't waste time here," he muttered, just loud enough for Alicia to hear. "She's probably just killing time before her bus comes." The other associate stifled a laugh. Alicia felt a familiar burn of indignation, but kept her expression neutral. She'd experienced this treatment before, the assumptions, the dismissals, the subtle and not-so-subtle reminders that certain spaces weren't meant for people who looked like her, regardless of what she'd achieved. After 20 more minutes of being studiously ignored by everyone except Maya, Alicia decided she'd seen enough. She walked slowly toward the exit, taking mental notes of everything she'd observed. At the door, she paused and turned back, catching Maya's eye. "Thank you for being the only one who saw me," she said softly. Outside on the sidewalk, Alicia pulled out her phone and dialed Camille. "How did it go?" Camille asked. "Prepare the terminations," Alicia replied, her voice calm but resolute. "And move up the announcement. I've seen everything I need to see." The next morning, Vanessa Whitfield arrived at Prestique & Co. 15 minutes early, as was her habit. She prided herself on being the first to arrive and the last to leave, a dedication that had earned her the manager position 5 years ago. The store wouldn't open to the public for another hour, giving the staff time to prepare the displays and review the day's appointments. As she unlocked the front door, Vanessa noticed something unusual. The lights were already on. Moving cautiously into the main showroom, she spotted a notice taped to the door of the conference room. "Mandatory Emergency Corporate Briefing 8 a.m. sharp, all staff required to attend." Frowning, Vanessa checked her email. There was nothing from corporate headquarters about a meeting. She pulled out her phone to call her district manager, but was interrupted by the arrival of Chad Thompson. "What's with the sign?" he asked, shrugging off his jacket. "I don't know," Vanessa admitted. "No one told me about a meeting." By 7:55, the entire staff had arrived, clustering uncertainly outside the conference room. Maya was the last to join them, clutching her notebook nervously. "Should we go in?" she asked. Vanessa straightened her blazer and adopted her most authoritative posture. "Let's find out what this is about." She pushed open the door and stopped abruptly. Seated at the head of the conference table was the woman from yesterday, the one she'd dismissed as a casual browser. But today, she was transformed. Gone were the jeans and simple blouse, replaced by an impeccably tailored suit. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, and a single strand of diamonds glinted at her throat. Even more surprising were the people flanking her. 2 individuals in expensive suits who had the unmistakable bearing of corporate lawyers, and 2 others who, based on their earpieces and vigilant posture, were clearly security personnel. Vanessa felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Please, everyone take a seat," the woman said, her voice calm but commanding. The staff filed in silently, exchanging confused glances. Chad leaned toward Vanessa as they sat down. "What is she even doing here?" he whispered. The woman stood, and the room fell silent. "For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alicia Monroe," she began. "As of last week, I became the sole owner of Prestique & Company." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Vanessa felt the blood drain from her face. "This wasn't scheduled to be announced until next week," Alicia continued. "But after my visit yesterday, I decided to accelerate the timeline." She nodded to one of the suited individuals, who handed out folders to each staff member. "Inside you'll find documentation of the acquisition, along with a comprehensive review of yesterday's store visit." Vanessa opened her folder with trembling hands. Inside was a printout of security footage time-stamped from the previous day, showing her interaction with Alicia at the counter. Beside it were transcripts of conversations, including Chad's window shopper comment. "As you can see," Alicia said, pressing a button that brought a large screen to life at the front of the room. "I've reviewed not only my own experience but the experiences of others." The screen displayed a compilation of security footage showing similar interactions with other customers, primarily people of color, who received markedly different treatment than white customers who entered the store. "This was not just discrimination," Alicia stated, her voice now edged with steel. It was willful sabotage of my investment. Prestige has settled 3 discrimination lawsuits in the past 2 years alone, a fact that was disclosed during the acquisition process. What wasn't disclosed was that the behavior continued unabated. Chad shifted uncomfortably in his seat before suddenly standing up. "This is entrapment," he blurted out. "You tricked us. You came in looking like what, Mr. Thompson?" Alicia cut him off. "Like someone who deserves less respect? Like someone who doesn't belong in a luxury establishment? Please finish your thought." Chad faltered, his face flushing red. "I gave each of you a chance to be decent human beings," Alicia continued. "Not a single one of you, with the exception of Maya, showed basic courtesy or professional respect. You failed not just as employees, but as people." She turned to Vanessa, whose face had hardened into a mask of barely contained rage. "Ms. Whitfield, as store manager, you set the tone for this establishment. The culture of discrimination evident here reflects directly on your leadership." Alicia nodded to one of the lawyers, who slid a document across the table to Vanessa. "You're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings." Vanessa stared at the termination papers in disbelief. "You can't do this. I've been with Prestige for 10 years. 9 years, 7 months, Alicia corrected. During which time customer complaints about discriminatory treatment increased by 68% under your management. She turned to Chad. "Mr. Thompson, you're also terminated. Your comments yesterday violated at least 6 provisions of the company's anti-discrimination policy." Chad's face contorted with fury. "This is bull. I suggest you leave with dignity," Alicia interrupted, nodding to the security personnel, who had moved to flank the 2 fired employees. "Unless you'd prefer to have this conversation continue in the presence of the labor board representatives who are meeting with my team this afternoon." As security began escorting them out, Vanessa turned back, her eyes locked on Alicia. "You'll regret this," she hissed under her breath. "You have no idea what you've started." After they were gone, a heavy silence fell over the room. The remaining staff members sat frozen, eyes downcast, waiting for the axe to fall on them as, "Well?" Alicia moved slowly around the table until she stood in front of Maya, who looked up with wide, fearful eyes. "Maya Jenkins," Alicia said, her tone softer. "You've been with Prestige for 7 months as an intern, correct?" Maya nodded, unable to speak. "Yesterday, you were the only person who showed me basic human courtesy. The only one who offered assistance, without prejudging my worth based on my appearance." Alicia slid a different document across the table to Maya. It wasn't a termination notice, but a letter of promotion. "Effective immediately, you're appointed provisional assistant manager. This is a 6-month probationary position. During that time, you'll be evaluated on your ability to implement the new values and policies I'll be introducing." Maya stared at the letter in shock. "Ms. Monroe, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll help rebuild this place into something worthy of its potential," Alicia replied. Maya nodded, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "I will. I promise." Alicia returned to the head of the table and addressed the remaining staff. "Let me be very clear about what happens next. This store will be closed for the remainder of the week for retraining and restructuring. When we reopen, it will be with new values, new leadership, and new eyes. This isn't just about avoiding discrimination lawsuits. It's about creating a place where everyone who walks through those doors is treated with dignity." She paused, letting her gaze meet each person around the table. "Some of you may be wondering if you still have jobs. The answer is conditional. Each of you will be evaluated over the next 30 days. Those who demonstrate a genuine commitment to change will stay. Those who don't will join Ms. Whitfield and Mr. Thompson in seeking employment elsewhere." The tension in the room was palpable. Some looked relieved at the second chance. Others seemed uncertain or resentful. "This isn't punishment," Alicia continued, her voice softening slightly. "It's an opportunity to grow, to be better than what I witnessed yesterday. The question is, are you willing to try?" Across town, in a dimly lit bar that had seen better days, Vanessa Whitfield nursed a whiskey in seething rage. The humiliation of being escorted out of the store she'd managed for years, in front of staff who had once feared and respected her, was almost unbearable. "Well, well," a voice said from behind her. "Never thought I'd see you drowning sorrows at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday." Vanessa turned to see Derek Patterson sliding onto the bar stool beside her. Formerly a vice president at Monroe Lux, Derek had been forced out 2 years ago amid allegations of financial impropriety and harassment. His once impeccable appearance had grown slightly disheveled, his expensive watch replaced by a cheaper model. "What do you want, Derek?" Vanessa asked coldly. "Just saying hello to a fellow member of the Alicia Monroe Victims Club," he replied, signaling the bartender. "Word travels fast in this town. How did you hear?" Derek smiled thinly. "I make it my business to know everything about Monroe Lux and its illustrious CEO, including when she fires someone as prominent as you." Vanessa studied him for a moment. "She destroyed your career." "She destroyed what could have been a much bigger career," Derek corrected, accepting his drink from the bartender. "I was on track to be CFO before she decided I didn't fit her precious company culture." "She humiliated me," Vanessa said, the words coming out in a rush of anger. "Came into my store pretending to be some random shopper, then fired me in front of everyone the next day." Derek's eyes lit up with interest. "So she fired you too? For what exactly?" "For treating her like any other browser who doesn't look like they can afford our merchandise," Vanessa snapped. "She called it discrimination. I call it business." Derek leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You know, I've been watching her for a while now, looking for vulnerabilities." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Derek said carefully, "that two smart people with a shared grievance might find a way to make Alicia Monroe very, very sorry." A slow smile spread across Vanessa's face as she raised her glass. "I'm listening." Back at Prestique, Alicia stood alone in the empty showroom. The staff had been dismissed for the day, with instructions to return tomorrow for the beginning of retraining. The store's lights were dimmed, casting long shadows across the gleaming display cases. Camille entered through the front door, surveying the space with a critical eye. "How did it go?" she asked, joining Alicia in the center of the room. "About as expected," Alicia replied. "Shock, denial, anger from some, relief from others. And how are you feeling?" Alicia was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the edge of a display case. "I keep thinking about my mother," she finally said. "How she saved for months to buy herself a simple gold necklace for her 40th birthday. How the saleswoman at a store not unlike this one followed her around like she was going to steal something." Camille nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. "Behind today's actions, this isn't just business for you." "No," Alicia admitted. "But it needs to be good business too. We have shareholders to answer to." "The board is behind you," Camille assured her. "Your track record speaks for itself." Alicia nodded, her reflection visible in the polished glass of the display case. In it, she could see echoes of the girl she'd been, the woman she'd become, and perhaps most importantly, the future she was determined to build. "Tomorrow," she said with quiet resolve, "we start rebuilding." The morning sun filtered through the newly installed windows of Prestique & Co., casting bright rectangles across the polished marble floor. 1 week had passed since the firing of Vanessa and Chad. The store remained closed to the public, but, inside, a transformation was taking place. Alicia sat at a small table in what had once been the VIP consultation room, now repurposed as an interview space. Beside her, Maya reviewed application materials, her confidence growing with each passing day. "Our next candidate should be here any minute," Maya said, checking her watch. Alicia nodded, taking a sip of her coffee. "Tell me about him again." Luis Ramirez, 34. Marine veteran, 4 years of high-end retail experience at Wilson's department store before they closed last year. His references call him unflappable and exceptional with difficult customers. The door opened, and Camille ushered in a tall man with military straight posture and alert eyes. His suit was modest but impeccably pressed, and he carried himself with quiet dignity. "Ms. Monroe, Ms. Jenkins, this is Luis Ramirez," Camille announced before excusing herself. Luis stepped forward with a firm handshake. Thank you for considering my application. Please have a seat. Alicia gestured to the chair across from her. I see from your resume that you manage the watch and jewelry counter at Wilson's. Yes, ma'am. 3 years as associate, 1 as department lead. What brought you to retail after the Marines? Maya asked. Luis considered the question. I like helping people find what they're looking for. In the Marines, everything was high stakes. In retail, I can still serve people, but the victories are smaller and sweeter, finding someone the perfect gift, making their day special. Alicia leaned forward. Luis, I'm going to be direct. We're rebuilding this store from the ground up. The previous culture was problematic. I've heard rumors, Luis admitted. That's partly why I applied. I believe in second chances for businesses and for people. What would you do if you saw a colleague treating a customer differently based on how they look? Luis didn't hesitate. I'd intervene immediately, redirect the customer to my care, and afterward, speak privately with my colleague. If the behavior continued, I'd report it to management. Alicia exchanged a glance with Maya. One last question, Alicia said. Why jewelry? You could work anywhere with your background. Luis smiled, the first real break in his professional demeanor. My grandmother had this old silver bracelet. Nothing fancy, but she wore it every day of her life. When she passed, she left it to me with a note that said, Remember, mijo, beautiful things should make people feel beautiful, not small. His eyes met Alicia's. I've never forgotten that. After Luis left, Alicia turned to Maya. What do you think? I think we just found our new floor manager, Maya replied with certainty. Later that afternoon, Alicia sat with Priya Sharma, a jewelry designer whose portfolio had caught her attention. Unlike the other candidates who arrived in business attire, Priya wore a colorful silk tunic over jeans with delicate silver earrings of her own design. These pieces are extraordinary, Alicia said, examining the portfolio. Why haven't I heard your name before? Priya's smile was tinged with sadness. I've been trying to break into the industry for 3 years. Most established jewelers want designers who look more like their traditional clientele. Their loss, Alicia replied, stopping at a stunning necklace design. Tell me about this one. Priya's eyes lit up. It's inspired by my grandmother's wedding bangles. See how the metal curves here? That's the same pattern that's been in my family for generations. Would you be interested in creating a signature collection for us? Something that combines your heritage with contemporary design? Priya stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? Completely. We need fresh voices, designers who see the world differently. Tears welled in Priya's eyes. Ms. Monroe, this is the first place that's seen my art, not just my visa status. Alicia extended her hand. Welcome to the team, Priya. I can't wait to see what you create. The transformation of Prestige continued at a rapid pace. The physical space underwent a dramatic renovation. The intimidating glass barriers between customers and jewelry were replaced with open, accessible displays. The stark white walls now featured warm colors and artwork from local artists. Most significantly, the VIP section was dismantled entirely. In its place, Alicia created the Artisan's Corner, a space where designers like Priya could work in full view of customers, demonstrating the craftsmanship that went into each piece. The message was clear. Luxury should be transparent, not exclusionary. The staff changed too. In addition to Luis and Priya, Alicia hired people with diverse backgrounds and experiences, some with traditional jewelry expertise, others with fresh perspectives from different industries. Maya flourished in her new role, though not without challenges. One afternoon, Alicia found her in the back office, frustrated after a difficult training session with the sales team. I don't know if I'm cut out for this, Maya admitted. Half of them still see me as the intern who used to fetch their coffee. Alicia sat beside her and pulled out a small leather-bound book. This was my first leadership journal. Every mistake, every doubt, every small victory, it's all in here. She handed it to Maya. Now it's yours. But you won't learn this job by watching, Alicia said gently. You'll learn it by stumbling and standing back up. Write it down, learn from it, grow. Maya accepted the journal, running her fingers. over the worn leather. Thank you. 2 weeks later, the store was ready to reopen. The evening before the grand reopening, Alicia hosted a private event for community leaders and social media influencers. The response was overwhelmingly positive. In one corner, Luis was helping an elderly woman select a necklace. Alicia moved closer to hear their conversation. "It's for my wife's memorial next month," the woman explained, her voice breaking slightly. "We were together 47 years. Luis's expression was one of genuine compassion. "Tell me about her. What did she love?" As the woman shared stories of her late wife, Luis listened attentively, eventually guiding her to a delicate pearl pendant. "Pearls grow more beautiful with wear," he explained. "They absorb the essence of the person wearing them. Perhaps this one can carry her memory for you." From her office doorway, Alicia watched the interaction, a lump forming in her throat. This was exactly what she had hoped to create, a place where jewelry became meaningful, not just expensive. Later that evening, after the event concluded, Alicia initiated another new tradition: weekly design nights for high school girls from underprivileged neighborhoods. The program, called Future Artisans, provided mentorship, materials, and a safe space for creative expression. "When I was your age," Alicia told the first group, "no one ever suggested I could create luxury. They barely thought I could afford it. But that ends with you." While Prestique was being reborn, Vanessa Whitfield was plotting its destruction. From a rented office space paid for by Derek Patterson, she orchestrated a campaign of subtle sabotage. Using her industry connections, she spread rumors about declining quality and service under new management. When those tactics failed to gain traction, she turned to more direct methods. Using a network of fake social media accounts, she began posting false claims. "Monroe fires employees for being white," read one viral post. "New diversity hire program replaces skilled artisans with untrained workers," claimed another. "Is this really necessary?" Vanessa asked Derek one evening as they reviewed their strategy. "It seems excessive." Derek's eyes hardened. "Alicia, Monroe cost me millions in stock options and my reputation. She humiliated you publicly. This isn't just business, it's justice." Vanessa nodded, pushing aside her momentary doubt. She returned to her computer and continued her work, unaware that Derek's vendetta ran far deeper than she realized. Despite the shadow campaign against it, the renovated Prestique & Co. thrived. 1 month after reopening, a prominent fashion influencer visited the store and was captivated by Priya's designs. "This necklace is extraordinary," she gushed, filming herself wearing Priya's signature piece, a delicate gold chain with geometric pendants inspired by traditional Indian patterns. "The craftsmanship is unlike anything I've seen." The video went viral overnight, generating hundreds of orders and waitlist requests. Priya, overwhelmed by the sudden success, worked late into the evening, carefully reviewing each commission. "You psych. Should go home," Alicia said, finding her still at her workstation at 9 p.m. "This will all be here tomorrow." Priya looked up, her eyes bright with excitement. "I never thought this would happen. People wanting my designs, appreciating my culture's influence." Alicia smiled. "Get used to it. This is just the beginning." As she left the store that night, Alicia was approached by Camille, who had been waiting outside. "Security flagged something odd," Camille said, handing Alicia a small package. "This was delivered by courier. No sender information." Alicia opened the package carefully. Inside was a diamond pendant, identical to one she had worn years ago, on the day of another humiliating incident at a different jewelry store. Beneath it was a handwritten note. "You shouldn't play dress-up where you don't belong." The blood drained from Alicia's face. Only someone who knew her past intimately would understand the significance of that particular pendant. "Increase security," she told Camille, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "And warn the team. Vanessa is working with someone who knows me too well." 1-star review. Staff was rude to white customers while fawning over minorities. Posted yesterday, Maya read from her tablet. That's the 5th one this week. Alicia, Luis, and Priya gathered in the conference room for their morning briefing. The atmosphere was tense as they reviewed the growing number of negative reviews appearing across online platforms. They're all using similar language, Luis noted, almost like they're working from a script. They probably are, Alicia replied. Vanessa is nothing if not methodical. Priya looked up from her sketches. Should we respond to them? Alicia shook her head. That's what they want, to drag us into a public fight that makes everyone look bad. For now, we focus on our customers and our work. The team nodded in agreement, though Alicia could see the concern in their eyes. As they filed out to prepare for opening, Camille entered with a worried expression. The Concerned Citizens campaign is gaining traction, she reported once they were alone. Several local news outlets have picked up the story. They're calling it reverse discrimination. Alicia's jaw tightened. Of course they are. There's more, Camille hesitated. They're using altered footage from our security cameras, selectively, edited to make it look like we're giving preferential treatment based on race. How did they get our security footage? I don't know yet. It is investigating. Alicia moved to the window, gazing out at the city skyline. The situation was becoming more serious than she had anticipated. This wasn't just Vanessa's petty revenge. This was organized, funded, and dangerous. We need to find out who's backing her, Alicia said. This goes beyond a fired employee with a grudge. That night, alone in her penthouse apartment, Alicia poured herself a rare glass of whiskey and sat in the darkness, memories washing over her like waves. She was 16 again, standing outside Harrison's fine jewelry, with her hard-earned savings, from months of after-school jobs. All she wanted was a simple silver bracelet for her mother's birthday. Nothing extravagant, just something beautiful to replace the one her mother had been forced to pawn years ago. The moment she entered the store, the atmosphere had shifted. The security guard followed her movements. The saleswoman watched her with suspicious eyes. When she finally approached the counter and asked to see a bracelet, the woman's response was cutting. These are real silver, you know. They start at $200. I know, teenage Alicia had replied. I have the money. The saleswoman's expression had made it clear she didn't believe her. Perhaps you'd like to come back with your parents? Before she could respond, another employee approached, whispering loud enough for Alicia to hear, "Watch her hands. These kids come in groups to distract and steal." The humiliation had burned through her, made worse when the manager asked her to leave and a security guard escorted her out. On the sidewalk, passers-by had stared, assuming she'd done something wrong. That night she had made a promise to herself. One day, she would own places like Harrison's. She would transform them. And no one would ever feel the way she had felt that day. The memory faded, leaving Alicia back in her darkened apartment, the untouched whiskey still in her hand. The shame of that moment had fueled her rise, driving her through college, business school, and the founding of Monroe Lux. Now, history was repeating itself, but this time, she had the power to fight back. The next morning, Alicia received a call from Thomas Blackwell, a prominent board member at Monroe Lux. The quarterly numbers look excellent overall, he began, but there's concern about this Prestige situation. What concern specifically? Alicia asked, already knowing the answer. The negative press is gaining momentum. Several investors have called, questioning whether this is the right time for a social experiment. Alicia's grip tightened on the phone. It's not an experiment, Thomas. It's a business decision based on market research showing that exclusionary luxury is dying. The younger demographic wants authenticity and inclusivity. I understand that, Thomas replied carefully. But perhaps it would be best if you stepped back from the storefronts to focus on overall strategy. Let someone else handle the day-to-day at Prestige while this blows over. The implication was clear. Distance yourself from the controversy. I appreciate your concern, Alicia said coolly, but I stand by our direction. The financials support it. Foot traffic is up 30%, and online sales have doubled since the relaunch. After ending the call, Alicia sat at her desk, fuming. Even at her level, with all she had accomplished, there were still people who believed she should retreat at the first sign of resistance. At Prestige, Priya was working with a client when her phone buzzed with an email notification. Opening it later during her break, she found an intriguing offer from someone named Alexander Reynolds, identifying himself as a private collector. "Your designs have captured my attention," the email read. "I would like to commission a personal collection and am prepared to fund your own independent line. Please consider this opportunity to expand beyond the constraints of corporate retail." The offer was generous, far more than her current salary at Prestige. Attached was a preliminary contract offering creative freedom, significant financial backing, and distribution through exclusive channels. Priya stared at the email, conflicted. She loved working at Prestige, was grateful to Alicia for the opportunity, but the chance to have her own line was a dream she'd held for years. What she didn't know was that Alexander Reynolds was a fabrication, an identity created by Derek Patterson to lure away Prestige's rising star designer. Luis found Alicia in her office later that afternoon, his usually calm demeanor troubled. "I need to tell you something," he said, closing the door behind him. "Something from my past that might affect you and the store." Alicia gestured for him to sit. "I'm listening." Luis took a deep breath. "When I was 22, fresh out of the Marines, I got into a bar fight. A guy made comments about my service, things escalated, and I put him in the hospital." Alicia's expression remained neutral. "Go on." "I pled guilty to assault, served 6 months, and completed anger management. It's been 10 years and I've never had another incident." "Why are you telling me this now?" Luis met her gaze directly. "Because someone sent me this today." He handed her his phone, showing an anonymous email with court documents attached. "They said if I don't quit, they'll make sure every customer knows a violent criminal is managing the store." Alicia studied the documents. "Did you disclose this during your background check?" "Yes. Everything was in my application." "Then we have nothing to worry about," Alicia said firmly. "You paid your debt. You've rebuilt your life. And you're an asset to this team." Luis looked relieved but still concerned. "What if they go public with it? Then we'll respond with the truth, that Prestige believes in second chances and judges people on who they are today, not mistakes made a decade ago." She handed back his phone. "Don't let them intimidate you, Luis. That's exactly what they want." The pressure continued to mount. Maya, still finding her footing as assistant manager, faced her own crisis of confidence after fumbling a presentation to important clients. The couple, friends of Vanessa, had asked technical questions about the pieces, deliberately trying to trip her up. Later, as she organized the display cases, Maya overheard them speaking to another customer. "They've got a charity case managing the floor now. Clearly a diversity hire." The word stung, feeding Maya's deepest insecurities. That evening, she found Alicia working late in the office. "Maybe I'm not ready for this position," Maya admitted, her voice small. "I embarrassed the store today." Alicia looked up from her computer. "Did you know this is my 4th company? The first 3 failed, spectacularly. I lost everything each time and had to start over." Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Success isn't about never failing," Alicia continued. "It's about how you respond when you do. Tomorrow, you'll study those technical specifications until you know them cold. Then you'll call those clients and offer them a private viewing with your newfound expertise." Maya nodded slowly, determination replacing doubt in her expression. "I can do that. I know you can. That's why you're here." As weeks passed, Alicia found herself increasingly isolated, working long hours and taking fewer breaks. The strain of fighting both external attacks and internal doubts was taking its toll. One night, Camille found her still at the office at midnight, surrounded by spreadsheets and market analysis reports. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Camille asked, clearing space on the cluttered desk to set down 2 cups of tea. Alicia shrugged. "I'll sleep when this is resolved." "And when will that be?" Camille pressed. "You're pushing everyone away, working yourself into exhaustion. This isn't sustainable. I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do," Camille insisted. "You're trying to outwork your trauma, to prove something to people who aren't even in the room anymore." The words hit Alicia like a physical blow. She looked up, ready to deny it. But the truth of Camille's observation was undeniable. "We need you at your best," Camille said more gently. "Not burnt out fighting ghosts from the past." Alicia sighed, the weight of weeks of tension finally breaking through her carefully maintained composure. "How do I separate the two? This feels personal because it is personal. By remembering why you started this. Not just to prove them wrong, but to build something better." Camille squeezed her friend's hand. "And by letting your team help you fight. You're not alone in this." The next morning, Camille burst into Alicia's office, her expression grim. "We found the leak," she announced, placing a tablet on the desk. "Someone's been accessing our systems remotely. Customer profiles, internal documents, security footage." "How?" "Through a backdoor in our inventory software. The connection traces back to a PR firm called Davidson & Associates." Alicia frowned. "I've never heard of them." "That's because they barely exist," Camille explained. "They're a shell company, and guess who they're registered to?" "Derek Patterson," Alicia guessed, the pieces finally clicking into place. Camille nodded. "Through 3 layers of holding companies, he's been orchestrating this whole campaign. The reviews, the emails to Luis and Priya, all of it." "And Vanessa? She's involved, but she's not the mastermind. Based on the financial records, she's essentially working for Derek." Alicia stood, a cold determination settling over her. "Call for a staff-wide emergency meeting. Lock down all systems. No one in or out without direct authorization." "What are we doing?" Alicia's eyes flashed with resolved fury. "We're done playing defense. If Derek wants war, he's got it." The Prestige & Cumber flagship store stood silent and dark, a handwritten sign on the door reading, "Temporarily closed for inventory, reopening in 48 hours. Behind the darkened windows, however, the atmosphere was anything but quiet. Alicia had converted the conference room into a war room. Digital screens displayed network traffic, security camera feeds, and data logs. A team of cybersecurity specialists, hunched over laptops, tracing digital breadcrumbs through the company's compromised systems. "The malware has been in our network for at least 3 weeks, reported Marcus Taylor, the head of Camille's security team. "It's sophisticated, designed to harvest customer data and internal communications without triggering alerts." Alicia paced the length of the conference table. "What exactly did they access?" "Customer profiles, purchase histories, internal memos," Marcus replied, scrolling through a list. "And they've had access to the security system, including cameras and audio." The implications were chilling. Derek and Vanessa hadn't just been watching from afar. They'd had eyes and ears inside Prestige for weeks. "The spyware appears to have entered our system through a marketing analytics package," Marcus continued. "From a vendor called Optima Designs." Camille looked up sharply. "We don't use a vendor by that name." "Exactly. It's a front company. The contract was approved by someone in marketing who thought it was legitimate." Alicia leaned over the digital display. "And it all traces back to Derek?" "Through several shell corporations. Yes. He's covered his tracks well, but we found connections to a holding company where he's the silent partner." The room fell quiet as the team processed the extent of the infiltration. The violation went beyond business rivalry. This was personal surveillance, methodical and invasive. "We need to purge the entire system," Alicia decided. "Every device, every network." "That will take days," Marcus cautioned, "and we'll have to rebuild from backups. Then we'd better get started." Alicia checked her watch. "Because in 72 hours we're hosting the launch event for the House of Monroe collaboration, and everything needs to be flawless." The collaboration between Monroe Lux and the newly rebranded Prestige, now called House of Monroe, was set to be the biggest jewelry launch of the season. Fashion editors, influencers, and high-profile clients had already RSVP'd. Alicia had staked her professional reputation on its success. "Should we consider postponing?" Camille asked quietly. Alicia shook her head. "That's exactly what Derek wants. We proceed as planned, but we double-check everything." The next morning, Alicia gathered the store staff in the main showroom. Faces reflected a mixture of confusion, anxiety, and suspicion. The sudden closure and presence of security personnel had created an atmosphere of unease. "I know the past 24 hours have been unsettling," Alicia began, "and I owe you an explanation." She proceeded to outline the situation: the security breach, the targeted campaign, and the connections to Derek and Vanessa. She was careful not to name potential internal collaborators, though the possibility hung in the air. "Until we identify exactly how the breach occurred, everyone will be operating under enhanced security protocols," she explained. "This isn't about distrust, it's about protection. For you, for our customers, and for what we're building here." The staff exchanged glances. Louis stepped forward. "Whatever you need from us, we're ready," he stated firmly. Several others nodded in agreement. Priya, however, looked troubled. After the meeting dispersed, she approached Alicia privately. "There's something you should know," she said hesitantly. "I received an offer from someone named Alexander Reynolds to fund my own line." Alicia's expression remained neutral, though internally she was connecting yet another dot in Derek's scheme. "When was this?" "Last week. I was considering it." Priya looked down, ashamed. The opportunity seemed too good to pass up. "Did you share any designs or information with him?" Priya shook her head. "No. Something felt off about the whole thing. The offer was too perfect, too generous for someone who had never met me." Alicia placed a hand on Priya's shoulder. "Thank you for telling me, and for trusting your instincts." As the hours ticked down toward the launch event, the team worked around the clock. Security systems were rebuilt, communications were migrated to new, secure channels, and every aspect of the event was carefully reviewed. Yet despite their best efforts, an atmosphere of paranoia settled over the store. Staff members watched each other with wary eyes, wondering who might have helped the intruders. Casual conversations stopped when others approached. Trust, so carefully cultivated over the past months, began to fracture. The night before the event, Alicia found Maya alone in the stockroom, meticulously counting inventory for the third time. "You should get some rest," Alicia advised. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." Maya looked up, dark circles under her eyes. "I can't afford to miss anything else. Not after my last presentation disaster." "That wasn't your fault." "It doesn't matter whose fault it was. I'm the face of management to the staff now, and they're all on edge." Maya set down her tablet with a sigh. "Some of them think there's a mole, someone still working with Vanessa." Alicia leaned against the inventory shelves. "What do you think?" "I think," Maya hesitated. "I think fear is doing exactly what our enemies want, dividing us from within." Alicia smiled slightly. "That's why you're in management, Maya. You see the bigger picture." The evening of the launch arrived, the store transformed into a showcase of light and elegance. The newly designed House of Monroe collection, a blend of traditional luxury and contemporary boldness, gleamed under carefully positioned lighting. Staff members wore custom-designed uniforms created by an up-and-coming fashion designer, embodying the brand's new inclusive approach to luxury. As the first guests began to arrive, Alicia stood at the entrance, radiating confidence despite her internal anxiety. Everything appeared perfect, until it wasn't. The first sign of trouble came when a VIP client approached the welcome desk, confused about her reservation. "I received a confirmation for the private viewing room at 8 p.m., she explained to the flustered receptionist. "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name on the list for any private viewing," the receptionist replied, frantically searching the system. Similar confusion spread throughout the event. Guests arrived expecting personalized experiences that hadn't been scheduled. Others couldn't find the pieces they'd expressed interest in previewing. The carefully orchestrated flow of the evening began to unravel. In the back office, Camille discovered the source of the chaos. Someone's been altering the reservation system. Customer orders have been changed or deleted entirely. "How is that possible?" Alicia demanded. "We purged the entire system." "They must have had a secondary access point we missed," Camille replied. Grimly, as staff scrambled to recover, more problems emerged. Several high-profile pieces scheduled for unveiling were missing from their secure cases. The catering order had been changed to include ingredients that a prominent food critic, in attendance, was severely allergic to. Outside, a commotion was growing. A group of journalists had arrived unannounced, shouting questions about customer, data breaches and financial irregularities. One reporter thrust a microphone toward Alicia as she tried to address the situation. "Ms. Monroe, what's your response to allegations that your company has been falsifying sales figures?" Another called out. "Is it true that House of Monroe is facing a class action lawsuit from former Prestige employees?" The most cutting question came from a woman at the back. "What's it like being a diversity hire billionaire? Do you think you'd have the same opportunities if you were actually qualified?" The carefully cultivated image of success and renewal was crumbling in real time, with photographers capturing every moment of the collapse. In the midst of the chaos, Maya stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steady as she addressed the gathering staff in the back room. "This is exactly what they want, for us to fall apart under pressure," she stated firmly. "We've faced worse than this. Remember the first week after reopening? We had nothing but each other and a vision. That hasn't changed." The staff stared at her, surprised by the authority in her voice. "Everyone take a breath," Maya continued. "Then we're going to split into teams. Registration team, create a manual, check-in system. Sales team, help guests find alternative pieces they might love. Security, politely but firmly remove anyone without a legitimate invitation." As the team dispersed with renewed purpose, Alicia watched from the doorway, a mixture of pride and gratitude on her face. This was the Maya she'd seen potential in from the beginning, finding her voice in the midst of crisis. Meanwhile, Luis was conducting his own investigation. During a security sweep, he noticed a man in catering uniform accessing a restricted storage area near the server room. Moving silently despite his size, Luis approached from behind. "This area is staff only," he said calmly. The man spun around, startled. "I was told to restock the ice buckets." "Ice is kept in the main bar area," Luis replied, noting the man's nervous glance toward the server cabinets. "ID badge, please." Instead of complying, the man shoved past Luis and sprinted toward the exit. Luis caught him in the hallway, using his military training to restrain him without causing a scene. A search revealed a thumb drive in the man's pocket and a temporary ID issued to Optima Designs. The mole had been found, a temporary worker planted by Derek's front company to sabotage the event from within. While the team fought to salvage the launch, Vanessa Hamilton was conducting an impromptu live stream from a cafe across the street, watching the chaos unfold with satisfied eyes. "As you can see," she told her growing audience, "the so-called House of Monroe launch is in complete disarray. Sources inside tell me that Alicia Monroe is having a breakdown and blaming everyone but herself." The stream was gaining viewers by the second, many drawn by the salacious hashtags Derek had arranged to have trending across social media. "Dire Monroe meltdown" and "Cock fake billionaire." "This is what happens when companies prioritize optics over experience," Vanessa continued smugly. "When qualified professionals are replaced for the sake of diversity." What Vanessa didn't know was that Derek was already distancing himself from their partnership. Having achieved his goal of public humiliation, he was carefully removing traces of his involvement, leaving Vanessa as the visible face of the attack. Inside Prestige, Alicia had disappeared from the main floor. The combination of public accusation, sabotage, and the hateful questions from the press had finally penetrated her carefully maintained composure. She had retreated to the old vault, room in the basement, now used for storage, seeking a moment alone to regain her center. In the dim light, surrounded by remnants of the store's past, Alicia felt the weight of everything pressing down on her. It wasn't just tonight's disaster, but the accumulated burden of a lifetime spent proving herself in spaces designed to exclude her. A memory surfaced, herself as a little girl, sitting on a worn couch, watching her mother count out crumpled bills on the kitchen table. They had needed money for rent, and her mother had been forced to pawn their last family heirloom, a simple gold locket passed down through generations. The pawnshop owner had offered a fraction of its worth, knowing their desperation. "Jewelry shouldn't just be for the rich, Alicia," her mother had said afterward, tears in her eyes. Beautiful things should belong to beautiful souls. Those words had stayed with her, shaping her vision for what luxury could be, and now that vision was crumbling under attack. Footsteps on the stairs pulled her from the memory. Camille appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "The team is handling things upstairs," she said gently. "Maya's been amazing." Alicia nodded, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I need to get back up there." "Not yet," Camille insisted. "First, you need to remember why we're fighting." Alicia took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I know why we're fighting, but I need to understand why he's fighting. What does Derek gain from all this?" "Revenge. Power. The satisfaction of seeing you fail." "It's more than that," Alicia said slowly. "This is too personal, too calculated." She stood up, resolution returning to her face. "I need to talk to someone who understands Derek better than we do." The following morning, Alicia drove to the outskirts of the city, to a modest neighborhood where her father now lived. William Monroe had once been a thief, then a diamond cutter, then an alcoholic. Now in his 70s, he lived a quiet life of redemption, mentoring at-risk youth and making small wooden jewelry boxes. Their relationship had been fractured for years, healing only recently. He greeted her at the door with knowing eyes. "I saw the news," he said simply, inviting her inside. The small house smelled of coffee and sawdust. "I need clarity," Alicia admitted, sitting at his worn kitchen table. William studied his daughter's face. "You're fighting the wrong battle." "What do you mean?" "You're trying to beat them at their game. Prove you belong in their world." He gestured to a half-finished jewelry box on his workbench. "I spent years trying to break into places I thought had value. It took losing everything to realize I was looking in the wrong direction. So what should I do? Give up? Let them win?" William shook his head. "No. Stop trying to fix their broken house. Build your own." He reached for her hand. "You weren't born to sell someone else's shine. You forge your own." The simplicity of his words cut through the noise of the past weeks, illuminating a path forward that Alicia hadn't considered. "Thank you," she said, squeezing his hand. As she left, William called after her. "They only have power if you play by their rules. Change the game." 3 days after the disastrous launch event, the staff of Prestige gathered once again, this time in the renovated community space above the store. The mood was somber, many expecting to hear that the store would be closing permanently. Instead, they found the room transformed. The walls were covered with new designs, material samples, and bold visual concepts. At the center stood Alicia, radiating a calm energy that had been absent in recent weeks. "What you see around you," she began, "is not a rebranding. It's a rebirth." She gestured to the largest display, a striking new logo and name, House of Monroe. Prestige was built on exclusion. We tried to transform it while keeping its bones intact. That was my mistake. Alicia moved to a large digital screen. "We're not renovating anymore. We're rebuilding from the foundation up." The screen displayed renderings of a completely reimagined space. The current store layout replaced with a circular design centered around the artisan's corner, expanded into a working studio visible from all angles. Inclusive luxury, legacy-driven design, unafraid and unapologetic craftsmanship. She looked around the room. These aren't just marketing phrases, they're our mission. The energy in the room shifted, hesitant hope replacing resignation. "What about the backlash?" someone asked. "The press is still running with the scandal." "Let them," Alicia replied confidently, "because while they're looking backward, we're moving forward." That afternoon, Camille led a team of legal experts in filing a comprehensive lawsuit against Derek's shell company, freezing all related assets and exposing Vanessa's involvement in criminal interference. The evidence collected by Luis, including the thumb drive from the infiltrator, provided a solid foundation for the case. The story hit national news within hours. Tech billionaire exposes corporate sabotage ring. The narrative was already shifting, casting Alicia not as a victim but as a formidable opponent who had uncovered a sophisticated attack. At the same time, Alicia met privately with Priya, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since the launch disaster. "I've been offered a position with Bergman Jewelry," Priya admitted. "They reached out yesterday." Alicia nodded, unsurprised. "They're a good company, traditional but solid." "I haven't accepted yet," Priya continued. "I wanted to talk to you first." "Why?" Priya gestured to her workstation, where designs for her heritage collection were spread out. "Because this is the first place that saw me, truly saw me. Not just my talent, but my culture, my perspective, my voice. And now others see it too," Alicia said. "That's a good thing." "It is," Priya agreed. "But they only want to capitalize on what you helped me create. They don't want to invest in what I might become." She picked up a sketch, a striking necklace that blended traditional Indian motifs with contemporary elements. "This is what I want to build. Not at Bergman, not with some fake investor like Reynolds. Here. With people who understand that luxury can have roots and soul." Alicia smiled, genuinely moved. "In that case, I have a proposition for you." She slid a folder across the table. "Full creative authority over the heritage line, your name on the collection, and a percentage of the profits." Priya's eyes widened as she read the contract. "This is more than I expected." "It's what you've earned," Alicia replied simply. The transformation of Prestige into House of Monroe proceeded at breakneck speed. The store closed for a 3-week complete renovation, reopening with a design that bore little resemblance to its former self. Gone were the intimidating glass cases and velvet-roped areas. In their place, a flowing space organized around the central artisan studio, where Priya and other designers worked in full view of customers. The walls featured artwork from local artists, and display cases were arranged to tell stories rather than simply showcase price points. Luis, now promoted to head of security and community outreach, implemented a revolutionary approach to store security, one based on welcome rather than suspicion. His team was trained to greet every customer with the same level of respect, regardless of appearance or attire. His promotion had come with another significant development. After careful consideration, Alicia had decided to publicly address Luis's past. "Your story is an asset, not a liability," she told him. "It represents exactly what House of Monroe stands for: growth, second chances, and judging people for who they are today." With Luis's permission, the store launched a partnership with a local veteran support group, providing training and employment opportunities. The program quickly gained attention, with other businesses inquiring about implementing similar initiatives. One afternoon, Luis was surprised to find the same group of veterans who had once been skeptical of his corporate position now sitting in the community space, listening intently as he explained the training program. "You built this?" one gruff former Marine asked, gesturing to the space around them. "No," Luis replied. "We all did, and we're still building." Maya's transformation was perhaps the most remarkable. The once hesitant intern now confidently managed a team of new hires, including a young woman who reminded her of herself 6 months earlier. "You seem nervous," Maya observed as the new assistant arranged a display with trembling hands. "I've never worked somewhere this nice before," the young woman admitted. Maya smiled, remembering her own first days. "Neither had I. But what makes it nice isn't the marble floors or the expensive jewelry. It's the people who see your potential even when you don't see it yourself." Later, Alicia found Maya training the new group, her natural leadership evident in the way the team responded to her guidance. "They respect you," Alicia noted afterward. "They respect what you built," Maya corrected. "No," Alicia insisted. "They respect you because you earned it, especially during the launch crisis. That wasn't my voice they rallied behind. It was yours." The Legacy Lab, once a small weekly workshop, expanded into a permanent feature of House of Monroe. The space provided education in design, metallurgy, and business skills to young women from underserved communities. During one session, Alicia watched as girls who had entered the program with downcast eyes and hesitant voices now passionately debated design concepts and market strategies. One girl had created a pendant inspired by her grandmother's journey from Haiti. a piece so striking that Priya had incorporated elements of it into her next collection, with the young designer credited and compensated. "This isn't charity," Alicia explained to a journalist who came to profile the program. "It's investment. The future of luxury won't come from the same exclusive circles that have defined it for centuries. It will come from new voices with fresh perspectives." As House of Monroe's reputation grew, influential celebrities and fashion moguls began to take notice. What had started as a controversial rebranding was increasingly recognized as the vanguard of a new approach to luxury, one that valued story, authenticity, and inclusion, without sacrificing quality or craftsmanship. When the quarterly financial reports were released, they showed something remarkable. House of Monroe was outperforming all projections, with sales figures that silenced even the most skeptical board members. At the investor meeting, Camille presented the data with understated confidence. "The numbers speak for themselves," she concluded. "This isn't just performing well, it's redefining what performance looks like in this sector." One board member who had been particularly vocal in his criticism leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I owe you an apology, Alicia," he said finally. "This isn't just a brand you're building, it's a movement." While House of Monroe flourished, Vanessa Hamilton's fortunes took a dramatically different turn. The evidence against her mounted, culminating in her arrest for corporate espionage and fraud. In a desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage, she had tried to launch a counterfeit jewelry line using designs stolen from Priya's digital files. The final blow came when her financial connection to Derek was exposed, revealing that she had been little more than a pawn in his revenge scheme. As the case progressed, Derek distanced himself completely, leaving Vanessa to face the consequences alone. On the day of her arraignment, Vanessa sat in a holding cell, watching a news segment about House of Monroe's latest achievement, a prestigious industry award for innovation. The camera panned to Alicia, resplendent in a gown featuring elements designed by a legacy lab student, accepting the award with grace. The guard asked if Vanessa wanted the TV turned off. "No," she replied, her expression unreadable. "Leave it on." Derek Patterson's downfall was more gradual but equally decisive. The investigation into his shell companies revealed a pattern of financial impropriety that extended far beyond his vendetta against Alicia. Multiple charges were filed, and extradition proceedings began to bring him back from the offshore haven where he had fled. Before disappearing, he sent Alicia one final communication, a sarcastic email with the subject line, "Enjoy your little store." Alicia printed the message and framed it, adding a small sticky note that read simply, "Fuel." In her office at House of Monroe, surrounded by evidence of all they had built from the ashes of sabotage, Alicia found herself reflecting on the journey. What had begun as a personal crusade against discrimination had evolved into something far more profound, a reimagining of what luxury could be, who it could serve, and whose voices it could amplify. The store below hummed with activity. Customers engaged in conversations with staff, artisans at work in the central studio, young women from the legacy lab presenting their semester projects to industry mentors. This, Alicia realized, was true success, not proving her critics wrong, but creating something so right that it rendered their criticism irrelevant. Not fighting for a place at their table, but building a new table altogether. As evening fell, Alicia walked through the showroom one last time before heading home. At the center of the artisan studio stood Priya's newest creation, a stunning necklace that told the story of transformation, of beauty forged in fire. "Perfect," Alicia whispered to herself. "Absolutely perfect." Dexax. Months after the rebirth of House of Monroe, Alicia sat in her office reviewing an invitation that had arrived that morning. The National Women in Business Association wanted her to deliver the keynote address at their annual conference, a prestigious honor typically reserved for long-established industry leaders. "They're expecting 1,500 attendees," Camille noted, leaning against the doorframe. "It would be excellent visibility." Alicia set the invitation aside, her expression thoughtful. "I'm not sure. You've given speeches before." This is different, Alicia admitted. They don't want me to talk about business strategy or market disruption. They want me to talk about my journey and breaking barriers. Isn't that worth sharing? Alicia sighed, standing to gaze out her office window at the bustling showroom floor below. I didn't build this to become a symbol or an inspiration story. I built it because it needed to exist. The two aren't mutually exclusive, Camille pointed out gently. Alicia's phone buzzed with a message from Maya. Surprise planned. Need you. Downstairs at 8 p.m. Business casual, non-negotiable. What's Maya up to? Alicia wondered aloud. Camille smiled innocently. No idea. But I'd follow her instructions if I were you. That evening, Alicia returned to the store as requested, surprised to find the lights dimmed and the space transformed. The central artisan studio had been converted into an intimate dining area, with tables arranged in a circle around a small stage. Maya greeted her at the entrance, looking pleased with herself. Right on time. What is this? Alicia asked, peering into the space. Something long overdue, Maya replied, guiding her inside. The room was filled with faces, some familiar, some unexpected. Store staff mingled with customers. Former interns chatted with artists whose work adorned the walls. In one corner, Alicia spotted the elderly woman who had bought the pearl necklace for her late wife's memorial, now wearing the piece and talking animatedly with Luis. Welcome to the First House of Monroe family dinner, Maya announced, leading Alicia to the center table. No press, no investors, no speeches. Just people whose lives have been touched by what you've built. Throughout the evening, Alicia found herself moved by conversations she hadn't expected. A shy teenager from the Legacy Lab explained how the program had helped her win a college scholarship. A middle-aged man described how a piece from Priya's heritage collection had helped him reconnect with his immigrant parents. A former Prestige employee confessed how the transformation had changed her perspective on inclusion. You didn't just create a store, the woman told Alicia. You created a different way of seeing the world. After dinner, several guests shared impromptu stories of how House of Monroe had affected their lives. There were no grand testimonials, just simple, sincere moments of connection and change. As the evening wound down, Alicia found herself at a loss for words, a rare occurrence for the always composed CEO. I don't know what to say, she admitted. To Maya. You don't have to say anything, Maya replied. Sometimes it's enough just to listen. Later, as they cleaned up, Maya handed Alicia a leather-bound book, the leadership journal Alicia had given her months ago. I've filled every page, Maya said proudly. And I've learned that leadership isn't always about having the right answers. Sometimes it's about creating spaces where people can discover their own. Alicia smiled, recognizing her own words reflected back at her, transformed by Maya's unique perspective. You've become a remarkable leader, Maya. I had a good example to follow. The following Sunday, Alicia made a difficult journey to a hospice facility on the outskirts of the city. Her father's health had deteriorated rapidly in recent weeks, his years of hard living finally catching up with him. William Monroe sat propped up in bed, looking diminished yet somehow more peaceful than Alicia had ever seen him. His weathered hands, once strong enough to break open safes and cut diamonds with precision, now trembled as he reached for her. You came, he said simply. Of course I did. Alicia sat beside him, taking his hand. They had spent so many years estranged, finding their way back to each other only in these twilight moments. I have something for you, William said, reaching for a small wooden box on his bedside table. His last creation, a master craftsman's final work. Inside lay a broken ring, the band cracked and one small stone missing. Alicia recognized it immediately, a piece from her mother's collection, one they had been forced to sell decades ago. How did you get this? Been tracking it for years, William admitted. Finally found it in a pawn shop in Memphis, too broken to be worth much to anyone else. Alicia cradled the damaged ring, feeling its history in her hands. Mom would have loved knowing it came back to us. She would have loved what you've built even more. William's eyes were clear despite his failing body. Finish what she started, Alicia. She always said beautiful things belong to beautiful souls. I will, Alicia promised, closing her fingers around the broken ring. Back at House of Monroe, Alicia sat at her design table for the first time in years. Though she had built a billion-dollar jewelry empire, she had long ago stopped designing pieces herself, consumed by the demands of running the business. Now, with her father's gift before her, she felt the creative spark reignite. Working late into the night, she sketched a design unlike anything in the House of Monroe collection, a ring built around the broken pieces of her mother's original, incorporating the fractures rather than hiding them. She called it the Resilience Ring, a one-of-a-kind piece that turned damage into its central design element, with new stones nestled within the cracks, strengthening while highlighting the original breaks. When Priya saw the design the next morning, she was stunned. This is extraordinary. The way you've used the fractures as a feature rather than a flaw. Do you think it can be made? Alicia asked. Priya studied the sketch carefully. It will be challenging. We'll need to stabilize the original metal without losing its character. But yes, it can be done. Then let's do it. Not for sale. For the permanent collection. As spring arrived, House of Monroe continued to flourish. Priya received a personal invitation to showcase her work at Paris Fashion Week, a rare honor for an emerging designer. You have to come with me, Priya insisted, showing Alicia the invitation. Your vision made this possible. Alicia smiled, but shook her head. This is your moment, Priya. Your talent, your heritage, your vision. I'll be cheering from here. Though she declined the Paris invitation, Alicia found herself increasingly drawn back to the design studio in quiet moments. The Resilience Ring had awakened something in her, a connection to the creative process that had been her first love before the demands of business took precedence. Late one evening, she sat sketching a new piece, a necklace inspired by her father's wooden jewelry boxes. She didn't hear Camille enter until her friend spoke. I haven't seen you design in years, Camille observed. Alicia looked up, slightly embarrassed to be caught in this private moment. Just playing with some ideas, Camille studied the sketch. It's beautiful. You should make it. Maybe someday. Right now, I'm more focused on the expansion plans. Camille sat down across from her. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. She hesitated, uncharacteristically uncertain. I'm taking some time off. Time off? Alicia set down her pencil, giving Camille her full attention. For how long? 6 months. Maybe a year. Camille met her gaze directly. The legal battles with Derek, the security overhaul, the relaunch. It's been non-stop for almost 2 years. I need to step back and breathe. Alicia felt a momentary panic at the thought of losing her right hand, but it was quickly replaced by understanding. If anyone had earned a break, it was Camille, who had fought tirelessly beside her through every crisis. Of course, Alicia said, reaching across the table to squeeze Camille's hand. The company will still be here when you're ready to come back. Camille's eyes glistened with unexpected tears. Thank you for understanding. Alicia stood and pulled her friend into a tight embrace. You held me together when I was breaking, she whispered. I wouldn't be here without you. Summer brought new opportunities for Luis, whose veteran outreach program had caught the attention of a popular podcast focused on military transitions to civilian life. The interview, initially scheduled for 30 minutes, stretched to 2 hours as Luis shared his journey from Marine to security head at House of Monroe. The biggest lesson I've learned, Luis told the host, is that our past doesn't have to define us, but it can inform how we build our future. My military experience makes me a better security director. My mistake makes me a more compassionate leader. The episode generated an outpouring of support and interest, leading to new partnerships and grant opportunities for Monroe's training programs. When Luis presented the expansion proposal to Alicia, his pride was evident. We could bring on 20 veterans per year, he explained, walking her through the budget. Full training, mentorship, job placement assistance. Make it 30, Alicia decided, and add a stipend for childcare and transportation. Let's remove every barrier we can. Luis nodded, making the adjustments. Thank you for trusting me with this. You've earned it, Alicia replied simply. One rainy afternoon, Alicia received an unexpected message from Julian Turner, a name from her past. Once an aspiring journalist and briefly her romantic partner, Julian had left to pursue his career, just as Alicia's first company was beginning to take off. Now a respected investigative reporter, he was in town working on a story about corporate transformation and requested a meeting. Against her better judgment, Alicia agreed to coffee at a quiet cafe near the store. Julian had aged well, silver streaking his temples, but his eyes still sharp and curious. They exchanged pleasantries, the initial awkwardness giving way to more genuine conversation as they caught up on the intervening years. I've been following your work, Julian admitted. What you've done with House of Monroe is remarkable. Thank you, Alicia replied. I hear you've made quite a name for yourself as well. A shadow crossed Julian's face. I have. But sometimes I wonder about the roads not taken. He met her gaze directly. Leaving you was a mistake, Alicia, one I've regretted many times over the years. The confession hung in the air between them. 10 years ago, these words would have meant everything to Alicia. Now, they were simply an acknowledgement of a chapter long closed. We both chose our paths, she said gently, and we've both accomplished what we set out to do. Would you consider? Julian began, then stopped himself. I'm sorry. That's presumptuous of me. Alicia smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. In another life, perhaps. But I'm not looking for a relationship right now, Julian. I'm finally hearing my own voice clearly for the first time in years. I need to listen to it. They parted warmly but with finality, Julian respecting her decision without pressure. As Alicia walked back to the store, she felt a surprising lightness. Maybe I needed to be alone, she thought, so I could hear myself. The Legacy Lab continued to grow, expanding from jewelry design to include business management, marketing, and entrepreneurship. When the program won a National Arts Education Award, Alicia received a letter from one of the first participants, a 17-year-old girl from the city's most underserved neighborhood. Before the Legacy Lab, the girl wrote, I never thought luxury had anything to do with me. It was something other people created, something I might sell or clean or admire from a distance, but never make myself. You made me believe I could belong in brilliance. Alicia framed the letter, placing it on her office wall alongside the financial achievements and industry accolades. Of all the recognition House of Monroe had received, this simple acknowledgement felt the most significant. Autumn brought a new class of interns to House of Monroe. Among them was 15-year-old Imani Williams, whose quiet intensity and natural eye for design reminded Maya of herself when she had first started at Prestige. She's special, Maya told Alicia after the first week. She came to every Legacy Lab session for 2 years, never missing one, even when she had to take 3 buses to get here. Alicia made a point of observing Imani during her shifts. The girl absorbed everything around her with remarkable focus, asking thoughtful questions and staying late to practice techniques she had observed during the day. One afternoon, Alicia found Imani studying the resilience ring in its display case, sketching detailed notes in a worn notebook. What do you see when you look at it? Alicia asked, joining her. Imani startled slightly, then composed herself. I see intention. The way the breaks aren't hidden, but highlighted. It's saying something about how we can be broken and still valuable. Alicia nodded, impressed by the insight. That's exactly what I was trying to express. You designed this one yourself? Imani asked, eyes widening. I did. It's made from a ring that belonged to my mother. Imani studied the piece with renewed interest. It's different from the other House of Monroe pieces, more personal. Sometimes the most personal creations are the most universal, Alicia replied. When we're honest about our own stories, we often touch something others recognize in themselves. Later that month, Alicia traveled to Atlanta for the opening of the first House of Monroe branch outside her home city. Unlike the flagship store, which occupied prime retail space, the Atlanta location had been built in a repurposed community center in a historically black neighborhood. The design honored the building's history, while transforming it into a space of beauty and possibility. Local artists had been commissioned for permanent installations, and the community room housed both jewelry design classes and financial literacy workshops. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Alicia found herself surrounded by community members who had watched the transformation with initial skepticism, then growing excitement. "My grandmother used to come to this building for community meetings in the 60s, an elderly woman told Alicia. She would be amazed to see what it's become, still, serving the community but in a new way. The Atlanta store was just the beginning. House of Monroe now employed more than 300 people across the country. Artisans, designers, sales professionals, and formerly incarcerated individuals enrolled in their second chance employment program. What had begun as Alicia's personal response to discrimination had evolved into something far larger, an alternative model for luxury retail that prioritized community connection and authentic representation. Back at the flagship store, Camille's book was causing a sensation in business circles. Titled Polished: Reclaiming the Power of Women Who Break the Rules, it chronicled her experiences at Monroe Luxe and the transformation of Prestige, though with names changed to protect the company's privacy. "Have you read it?" Maya asked Alicia one morning, finding her at her design table. "Every word," Alicia replied with a smile. "Camille sent me the manuscript before publication. It's brilliant, unflinching but ultimately hopeful. She writes about you, you know. Not by name, but it's clearly you." "She writes about all of us," Alicia corrected. "About what we built together." Priya's success continued to grow, her heritage collection now featured in major fashion magazines and worn by celebrities on red carpets. But rather than becoming more distant, her success had deepened her connection to House of Monroe and its mission. She established a scholarship program for young designers from India, named in honor of her grandmother whose bangles had inspired her first collection. The first recipient was a young girl from Delhi with extraordinary talent but limited opportunities. "She reminds me so much of myself," Priya told Alicia as they reviewed the girl's portfolio. "Except now she won't have to spend years knocking on doors that won't open." "That's the legacy that matters," Alicia replied. "Not just what we create, but who we empower to create after us." The legal proceedings against Derek Patterson concluded with a sentence that included jail time and significant financial penalties. When asked if she would attend the sentencing or provide a victim impact statement, Alicia declined. "I already gave him too much of my time," she told the press simply. "My focus is on building, not on revisiting the past." Privately, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also a strange sense of gratitude. Derek's attacks, though devastating at the time, had ultimately forced her to rebuild stronger, to clarify her vision, and to create something entirely her own. In a women's minimum security facility, Vanessa Hamilton watched the news coverage of a humanitarian award ceremony, where Alicia was the honoree. The segment showed the thriving House of Monroe empire, with locations now in 5 cities, and an internationally acclaimed design collective. A fellow inmate noticed her attention to the screen. "You know her or something?" Vanessa's face remained unreadable as she reached for the remote and turned off the television. Whatever thoughts passed behind her eyes remained her own. Luis's nonprofit wing of House of Monroe had grown beyond anyone's expectations, now serving veterans and their families across 3 states. Working closely with Maya, he had developed training modules that were being adopted by other companies interested in similar initiatives. "We've been approached about writing a book," he told Alicia during their monthly review, "about the program, the philosophy behind it." "You should do it," Alicia encouraged. "Your voice needs to be heard." Luis smiled, shaking his head slightly. "A few years ago I was worried my past would destroy my future. Now it's becoming a book. Life is strange. Life is possibility," Alicia corrected, "when we allow it to be." Nearly 2 years after the transformative collapse and rebirth of what had once been Prestige & Co., Alicia stood on a stage at an international jewelry expo, preparing to cut the ribbon for the House of Monroe showcase. The audience included industry leaders, fashion editors, and young designers eager to glimpse the future of luxury. As Alicia raised the ceremonial scissors, she paused, overcome by a moment of reflection. She thought of her 16-year-old self, standing humiliated outside that jewelry store, of her mother counting bills at the kitchen table, of her father's weathered hands crafting wooden boxes, of Maya's transformation from hesitant intern to confident leader, of Priya finding her voice through her heritage, of Luis turning his past into purpose. "Let them see me now," she whispered to herself, "and everything they never did before." With a decisive motion, she cut the ribbon, officially opening the exhibit to thunderous applause. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Alicia worked alongside Imani in the artisan studio, teaching the young intern to polish a flawed diamond, one with natural inclusions that most jewelers would reject. "The trick," Alicia explained, guiding Imani's hands, "is to work with the stone's natural character, not against it. See how this inclusion creates a unique pattern when light hits it from this angle? That's not a flaw, it's a signature." Imani followed the instructions carefully, her concentration absolute as she learned to bring out the stone's hidden beauty. After an hour of patient work, she held it up to the light, marveling at the transformation. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "I never would have seen the potential." "That's the secret," Alicia replied. "Seeing potential where others see problems." Imani looked around the thriving store, at customers engaged with staff, at Priya mentoring another young designer, at Luis leading a tour for veterans interested in the training program. "You made all this?" she asked in wonder. Alicia smiled, placing a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "No," she said softly. "We did." In that moment, Alicia understood that true legacy wasn't about buildings or brands or even personal recognition. It was about creating spaces where others could thrive, where new voices could be heard, where the definition of beauty expanded to include what had once been excluded. House of Monroe would continue to evolve long after her, shaped by the Mayas, and Prias and Luises and Imanes, who would bring their own visions to the foundation she had built. That was not just success. That was significance. "We did," she repeated, watching Imani return to her work with renewed purpose. "And we're just getting started." What would you have done if someone judged your worth by appearance, only to discover you held their future in your hands? Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of justice, resilience, and the powerful moments that transform lives.